Hi, everybody.
Oh, we're live. Hi, everyone. We're just waiting for Jeff to get his pup in a pile because he is literally this last few seconds. Yep. Arrived at the studio. He's just had time to remove a few identifying features. So he's incognito now. Yeah.
Hi,
Spectacles,
Ken.
testicles, watch and wallet.
And Robert and Sir Neville Bounds.
Ah, hi, Nev.
Who you'll
A
see
rare
tomorrow.
appearance, yes,
Yeah.
certainly. It was nice to see you yesterday, old man. Yeah, it was good.
Hey, Tanya. Nice to see you. You're taking a little break from work. Good. So yeah, we're going to do about an hour plus plain tale this morning, and then at 6 o'clock this evening, we're going to do part 2, and that'll be with Jeff and Steph and Rick. And I don't think you're coming back, are you, Nick? Nick Camacho at that point?
This afternoon?
Yeah.
I was going to see how work was going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. See what's
So
happening.
I'm totally up in the air.
Okay.
Unless you need an answer, and we could just say no now.
Don't need an answer at all. But if you can,
definitely have plenty of housework to do.
But being up in the air for an aviation podcast is a very good thing.
Very appropriate.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
and
anyway.
who've we got watching today? Well, obviously Neville, we just mentioned that. Mike Kuipers is in. And the lovely Tanya. Hi, Tanya.
Robert Hoffman.
Paul. Hi, Paul.
Ken Hayes.
No, Tim Van Ram. It's early over in
Yeah.
Tim Van Ram
Yeah.
lands.
He must have trouble sleeping, that poor man.
He says it's Fogust in San Francisco. That's what they call it,
that's
Fogust.
true.
I assumed that was Tim just being a bit foggy, but
There's an area, there's a little hamlet like northwest of San Luis Obispo that one of my coworkers lives in, and I stayed with him in one of my last trips, and it gets foggy in like the first or second week of June, and then they see the sun again at like the end of August or the beginning.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I could not do it.
Well, I actually watched. I get for some reason I get a Los Angeles TV station on my TV here, and every now and then, and they always talk about the marine layer. The marine layer is coming in, and it's
That's
like
what it is.
The fog, right?
That's what it is.
It's a type of advection fog.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But his fog doesn't burn off during the day there, Nick. It just stays up.
Well, if it's a marine layer, it's often being generated over the ocean, and it's the movement of the air which is bringing it into the land, so it continually regenerates. Comes over the land, burns off probably further inland, but as far as they're concerned, they just get a constant layer of gently moving fog coming over their heads.
Yep, and that's
we used
exactly
to get a lot
right
in
on the water.
Wales.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Paul Verhagen is in Utrecht in the Netherlands, visiting his family. Very nice.
Sorry.
Oh. Okay, now I sound weird.
I think that is not
normal.
That was not you.
Not normal.
No.
I spotted Robert. Hi, Robert, and recovering from COVID. Hope your symptoms aren't too bad. Please don't breathe on the screen.
Yes.
We don't want to catch it. So if you could avert your face or wear a mask.
No, I do have a screen mask on here that's keeping me protected. Yes, Nev and Nick Anderson are traveling to Ivor's funeral tomorrow, which is really great. You'll be there to represent all of us guys. So
absolutely, yeah. We'll take a few pictures so that we can tell everyone what it was like. They've asked people not to necessarily dress somberly.
Oh, nice.
So.
That sounds like Ivor.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. So I'm going to go half and half. I'll put my my funeral suit on, but I might find a funny tie to wear.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I like it. Now we don't know yet if there's a link for the service yet.
I did check again on Facebook, and I haven't seen anything.
Nothing yet,
So
okay.
I'm assuming that if there was something,
She would have
they
put-
would have said.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Cool.
I mean, not every crematorium does
No.
it, but a lot have over the
Well,
pandemic.
certainly during the pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, once they've installed something like that, you'd want to keep it going, wouldn't you? 'Cause,
Definitely. Well, probably they'll
Yeah.
probably eventually they'll charge for it, right? Because it's an income thing.
Yeah, exactly. Could be.
Hi,
And,
Neil Landmore.
I remember fascinating watching a program about the Japanese. They have a day each year when everyone goes and honors their dead ancestors.
Right.
Well, for those Japanese people who can't get to where their ancestors are laid to rest, there's a service where you can
Yes.
have them
Video.
video the sort
The
of
visit,
room in a
yeah.
temple where then they have this enormous machine which goes around and through this enormous bank of ashes and grabs the casket that contains their ancestor and sort
Wow.
of whirs it to the front, delivers it, and there's a priest there.
Wow.
You know.
Could you try again?
Oh, hush up there, Siri. And then it arrives. They get 10 minutes or so with their
With each
ancestor and the priest.
Wow.
Then the robot takes it away again.
Amazing technology. Eh?
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, isn't it? There's a day in Mexico, the Day of the Dead. I think that they have as well. I think.
I'm sure it's probably an equivalent, yeah. It's like going visiting a graveyard in China. I was amazed to see that a lot of the Chinese are buried standing up. So
Oh,
that
Space wise, for space considerations.
well, I'm assuming I'm not an expert on
Wow.
the various religions of China, but yeah, so they have sort of a a gravestone that's like a top knot.
Little bit. Oh wow. I
Yeah,
just saw a video on something recently that whales, big, huge whales, when they want to sleep, they actually stand themselves up vertically. And
Really?
apparently, yes, it's a thing that apparently predators have real trouble focusing on. It's a smaller footprint or something. But yeah, I've got a picture. I'll find a picture and show it to you.
Well,
I
I
couldn't
never.
believe it. They had a pod of these big, huge whales, about 5 of them, standing up, sleeping.
Good Lord! So
And-
it wasn't
and of course-
someone just turned their picture on.
No,
on
I
the
don't think. No,
side.
I don't think so.
On the end.
And they were saying, I mean, it's pretty interesting because, of course, they're mammals, right? So they take a breath and they go down and they sleep in this configuration for something like an hour or something. Like they're able to stay submerged. It's pretty
Wow.
amazing. See if I can
Well,
find
what
it.
bird is it that can sleep on the wing? Is it the swift or the swallow?
Yeah,
And they think
I'm
that
not sure.
they and I think there are some marine creatures that do it as well. They can shut off half their brain.
Yeah,
Half
their
the
whole,
brain goes to sleep,
and their whole metabolism slows down and everything,
Yeah.
right? So yeah.
and then they can sort of swap it around and rest the other half. That'd be pretty useful. It'd be great for airline pilots, wouldn't it? Because I mean,
Mm-hmm.
with someone like Jeff, you wouldn't notice the difference because he's half
Are
his
you
brain
are you
turned off.
testing
That's
if he,
just like normal.
you're testing whether
He's
he's
listening.
listening, right? Yeah.
There he is.
Yeah, I'm like,
Oh dear. I could get in trouble doing this,
I know.
HR will be onto me, and I'll have my wages docked again.
Here, Nick, I just sent you a link to the article I saw. It's a National Geographic article about these
Cool.
whales standing up on end.
Oh yeah. Oh, what a beautiful picture.
Isn't that
I
a
don't
gorgeous
quite
picture?
understand. Hang on a minute. What is the sun's rays doing coming from underneath them?
No. Oh, well, I see what you mean. They're radiate. I don't know.
Well, I don't know whether that's just, it could be just the camera. Actually, it's not, because if you look at them, their noses are highlighted in the light.
Right.
So it's just got to be a sort of converging sun rays coming down. But isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I didn't. I was totally unaware of that feature of whales before.
I mean, That's so clever. They must have perfect buoyancy just to sit there.
Jeff, are you ready for me to call you yet? Yes? Okay.
They stand like this without moving for minutes or hours.
Yes.
All are females. Oh, it's all the women having a kip. Well, all the men are off doing whatever they do, doing whale stuff, singing away or something. Oh, hello. What's that funny noise?
It's Liz calling me. I
Does
can.
she always
Can you
make
hear
that
me?
funny noise when she calls?
Okay, I'm back. Hi, Poppy.
Don't do anything there. Sorry, I don't know. I hit a wrong button, I guess.
Was it the button no pilot
No
should ever
pilot
push?
should ever push. Do you still show me active on Skype?
No, I do not. I'll call you again.
Thanks.
Ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da.
Hello.
Yes, hello. Okay. So don't push that button again.
Otherwise, people
try
will
not
start
to.
to wonder if you're really a pilot.
I really am.
I think
just-
you wonder
I
if that
just-
about-
I mean, I'm wearing this costume. I mean, uniform.
Yeah, the
Oops.
rental costs for that, you've had it for so long, must be getting a bit steep now.
Yeah, it is. Okay, now I need to add. You said you added some something in the
Getting to know us.
getting to know us, Nick.
I just put a couple of extra pictures.
Okay, I had.
Nick, we had explicit directions.
I
Yeah.
did, and I put them where they're supposed
I guess
to.
I need to put a cutoff time.
Yes, you
next
need a
time.
time frame. Sorry, I'll be right back.
Okay.
My dog
Well,
needs me.
I did it as early as I actually did it before I had my morning
Um,
coffee.
you know what? It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't really matter. I probably won't get to it until right now anyway. Okay, copy.
Just
now-
I woke up and Nev had sent them to me. So.
Did you want those before the other photos or after?
Well, since Liz is putting them up, can she select them? Or do they have to come up in turn? Do they?
Well, no. It just probably makes it easier for
I
her.
was going to have Rowie to start with,
Okay.
then the one of Chris and I doing the interview.
Okay, hang on. Oh, what the hell? Heck is that?
Was that a buzz? Was that buzzing sound coming from my computer?
No, it's from me, I think.
You've got a leak in your hydraulics again?
Yeah, I might. Okay. I turned my... Dang it. Yeah, I think it's my iPhone, and I need to turn off the cellular. And I thought I had. It says off, so I don't know what it's coming from. Maybe over here. Maybe this.
Okay. It was just coincidentally timed that it happened like the instant I pushed a button.
Yeah, I think that was just coincidence. Okay, now we'll go over back to Skype. Okay, there. Now, that should be fine. And I'm adjusting this photo of you interviewing the fine Harrier pilot.
Yeah, Harrier Puke, we call them.
Harrier Puke.
Yeah, which is a term of endearment for all bomber pukes.
Okay, so that's going to be the second one. And then the third one is
I don't mind which one. It'd either be the one of me or the one of Chris.
the one that you have a very bewildered look. Well, that's kinda
Yeah,
normal.
that's me doing the intro.
Okay.
You're a little
and,
loud, Jeff, by the way.
All right.
And
Well,
you can
then
finish
I'll turn
with
it
the
down.
Martin Baker picture, I guess.
Okay.
I hadn't really thought about which order. I assumed Liz was just going to bang them up as I was yakking.
I'll
Well,
wing it.
So
I'll wing it.
Yeah, she's pretty good
okay,
at that. Okay.
but there you
so-
go. There's a real Caterpillar Club golden brooch that the pilots, same as it they got in World War II, with the little ruby eyes.
So we can use those when we talk about Nigel's item on bang seats.
Well, you can. Yes, exactly.
I love that title, bang seats.
We
Bang
call them
seats.
rumble seats over here.
Oh, that's good too.
Rumble seats? I thought rumble seats were the things that were in old cars.
Cars, yeah.
I think they're two different.
Now,
Oh, I got it. I get it. I finally understand what you're saying now, Nick Camacho. Okay. Has nothing to do with an ejection seat. Got it. More like no, I can't even say that.
Yeah, I think I've got
An injection
there's
seat.
two now. They've doubled.
Do you have
of me.
things on your highways, some places that are called rumble strips when they're
Yes.
trying? Yes.
Yep.
Time to rumble! How's the...
Get ready to
How's the
rumble.
audio? I don't know. I can't hear anything.
Yeah,
now.
no, I'm deaf now.
is-
for that.
Am I still too loud? I mean, when I'm not normally yelling
I would
rumble?
say you're a little bit loud for
Okay.
to me.
Still?
but-
How about now? How about now?
Yeah, that's
Testing
better.
1, 2.
That's good.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear
yeah,
me now?
that's good.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, they used to just have rumble strips on the side of our highways, so you didn't fall asleep and drive off the highway. Now they have them everywhere. They have them in the center lane, so you
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
go across. They have them like coming up to a stop sign, so you pay attention.
Yeah, we don't have many here, so they really scare me when they happen. So like, oh,
Yeah, what is that?
get your attention.
Okay, share screen. Oh, no. Oh, slides.
So just to reiterate, everybody, we plan to do about an hour plus Nick's plane tail today. So that's sort of the plan of action.
Yeah. Well, that will never happen, of course, but that's
No.
our plan.
I
didn't
will.
Why
think
not? Aim for the moon.
Are we going to come back and talk after the plane tail?
Probably.
Yeah, a little bit, I
Yeah, a
guess.
little briefly, I guess.
Okay. Slides are uploading.
Okay, cool. And I have, with Nick Anderson's collaboration, I've chosen a few items that we thought we'd focus on today. So I put his name after them, so it's like
Yeah.
I think
One,
we're doing them
two,
all
three,
today.
One-
four,
1C, 1E.
5, 6, 7, 8.
We're not
9,
gonna get
10,
to them all.
11.
we're not going to get to them all.
11 of them.
Oh, I thought you were talking about doing part A versus part B, but we're doing
Yeah, no.
both of them. Part A and
If we talk really fast,
Yeah, if you have nothing to say, we might get to them.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, Neville, how's the sound now? Am I still over-modulating? We're getting a real sound check guy.
Yeah,
Oh, right. Okay.
really.
You know, Nev's almost completely deaf now. He's been doing this job for so long.
Not a really good, and he's half blind too. So,
Yeah, it's true.
audio visual.
He
Come
says,
on. Nev.
he says, very nice,
Well,
Jeff.
Well, that's why he has such a garishly coloured car, so he can find it with his
there's Micah.
limited vision.
Nev,
I heard
Nev,
you.
Nev approves of your audio, so.
Okay, good. Well, I approve of his.
Hey Jeff, I've got a bunch of stuff checked. Like I've got echo cancellation checked. We used to not use that.
Yeah, we don't. I don't think we need it because we're using headsets now. So you can uncheck echo cancellation. Everybody can check their.
and then
sound
automatically
settings.
adjust mic volume.
That-
I'm checking that. Or do you want me to leave that checked?
You can leave it checked, and then if we have issues with it, we can uncheck it.
I wonder why I didn't save that stuff. I feel like
It does. It like resets to defaults all the
So
time. I
I
don't
should
know why.
have
it does it all the time.
automatically adjust mic volume as checked, but nothing else checked, yeah?
Yeah, I think
fog
so.
is fog.
We'll see.
Oh, so a funny story about San Francisco fog. You know, Major League Baseball has a set of uniforms for like half the teams that they call City Connect, and they tried to incorporate like elements associated with the cities. And the San Francisco Giants uniform is like fog based. And it made everybody very mad. Not everybody, but there were a lot of people that were very mad about it. So they
How-
were like, the numbers are kind of like half covered up by fog, and then they've got a little Golden Gate Bridge patch that is like covered in fog at the top.
That's dumb.
It was
Love it.
it was interesting.
Love it.
I thought they'd be bright yellow so you could see them in the fog.
Yeah, no.
Liz, do you see the slides?
Oh, yes, sir. Let me go have a quick look.
I figured you'd want to look at them.
Thank you very much.
It didn't look like anything was happening to them.
Yeah, there wasn't. You're correct.
Okay. So sorry, everybody. As you can see, in uniform right now because I, at the last minute, picked up an overnight deadhead to Memphis and then early this morning fly one flight back to ATL. And I figured that I'd be, I think I was supposed to land around 8 o'clock, and I figured that would leave me enough time to get home and ready for this 10 o'clock, but I forgot about the traffic. Yeah, traffic's not good in Atlanta in the morning at all. Okay, so any other weird noises, sounds going on that you can hear?
No, I mean, I've got my fan going, but
Okay.
I'll turn that off when we start proper.
Okay. And I can always get rid of that in post if it's not too annoying and on the YouTube.
Well, you haven't even mentioned it yet, but I've just turned it off.
Oh,
now.
I see. That was, okay, you know, I thought that was my background.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Noise. That was yours. Okay.
Yeah.
No, you're not horrible, Nick. Oh, on second thought, you are horrible.
Well, he is horrible.
Could be. It could be. Could change my mind. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I got to get the sound playing app up and ready to go. That's always helpful when you're doing a show. And we also need to get Evernote. So we're doing, as we have mentioned, if you're just now joining us, we're doing a two-parter. This is the first part. We're going to try to do approximately an hour of news and feedback items, and then we're going to play Nick's Plain Tale, and then we'll have a short discussion after that, and then we'll stop, and then about 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 8 hours from now, just under 7.5 hours from now, we'll start the part two. Let me see. Let me get this ready to go. Where's that? Soundbite control. Okay, good.
Okay. Okay, so slides are good.
Uh-oh.
Oh, boy.
That's not a good sound.
Hopefully he didn't put his back out or something.
I just knocked my earphones off and they fell onto my bare feet.
Your earphones fell
He wears them on his feet.
of your bare
Apparently.
My feet can hear more than you can imagine. Actually.
I'm
You can hear him
sure.
snapping his
Oh.
toes.
Someone's crackling a bit there when they were leaning over.
That was me putting in the. Why is it making that noise?
That's because you put the in.
stuck it in.
It was this.
That's stop.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's definitely cracking.
I know I did that on purpose.
Yeah, I know.
It's still there.
Well, okay, I know. This will probably stop it. I'm going to turn off the power. Oh, that did not stop it. That's no good. What is it picking up?
Turn off the power to your computer and see if that stops it.
No, you're the one that does that.
No, I just turned the power off to the broadcast.
Well, equivalent thereof.
Did that
Oh,
stop?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Good.
didn't hear it.
I don't hear it either. I just had to reposition one of the wires, and that apparently did it. Okay, so we have that.
A little bit of RF interference.
Yes.
You do get more expensive shielded cables, Jeff.
I do. I need to spend some of that coffee fund money on
Yeah, you
shielded
need
cables.
to get down to. I was going to say Radio Shack, but they don't exist anymore, do they?
I don't think so.
No, they don't.
Gone forever.
Okay, so let me look at Evernote and see what we're going to
We're
start off
starting with
with.
1C is what we're starting with.
1C.
1C and 1E. We're
So
doing
how do I
those.
tell the one that is?
I've got Nick's name after the title.
All right, I guess I need to quit Evernote and restart it.
That's okay. I can prompt you. I'll
Oh
prompt
yeah,
you.
it's
that's
not
right.
showing up on mine either.
So I'll restart. I don't know why it doesn't automatically update. It should. It used to, but the latest versions don't. Oh. Okay, now I see it. Yeah, just tell me
I'll tell
in
you.
my ear. Okay.
I'll tell you where you're going.
All right. So we're going to start off
Where
with
you've been.
Yeah.
You've just done the wrong piece, Jeff.
Yeah. Start
Yeah,
start
well,
over.
that wouldn't be the first time, Nick.
Start over.
Yeah, I know. I'll do my trick where I get ready to do the next one, and then I go, okay, we're going to the next one, and then skip it. Okay. I think, so I have my recorder going. How about you all? I know we hardly ever use your individual recordings, but just in case.
Skip for now. I'm going.
Okay.
Oh, Neil, are you near a Cineworld? Because that's, I think our local Cineworld is doing a double Top Gun.
Oh,
Cineworld.
Yeah, I think it's an American
Cine-
company, actually.
Not SINNY.
yeah.
Oh, that's Las Vegas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's Cine City. Not
Sin City.
Cineworld.
That's a great movie.
Are we ready?
Let me do the sound check on Radio Roger because I just bumped up the volume on the computer, so it's probably going to be too loud. Let's see.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
That's better.
View
That's
from
cool.
our side of the cockpit door.
Okay.
That's good.
All right. If you all are ready, let's give this thing a whirl. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Here we go.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG, it's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy episode 534.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. With your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from Studio 1A at former APG headquarters in Roswell, Georgia. Today's show is recorded on the 25th of August, 2022.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Get you right as he's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
You can still hear me?
In today's episode, an Ethiopian Airlines crew falls asleep and overflies their runway. A Cessna pilot talks about his emergency landing after running out of fuel. More news, your feedback, and today's plane tale, the battle above the Somme. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 534 is ready for pushback.
Thank you, Radio Roger. He is an award-winning TV and radio reporter, currently at the #1 all-news station in the nation, 1010 Wins in New York City. Welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast covering the latest in aviation news and answering your great feedback. I'm Captain Jeff, the pilot at a major legacy airline based in Atlanta, Georgia, and joining me from his studio,
in Hartford, Hereford, and Hampshire.
professional photographer, former RAF fighter pilot, retired Airbus A330, A340 captain for Virgin Atlantic Airways. It's Captain Nick.
Hi there, Jeff. Hi, everybody. Isn't it great to be doing the show at a civilized time of the day?
Yeah, I think so.
Mix it up.
Yeah, we like to mix it up. All right, and also joining us, hey, from his studio in Air Capital, low and slow pilot, old airplane enthusiast, and engineer in the aerospace and defense industry, it's Nick Camacho.
Hey, Captain Jeff. Good to be back with you.
Great to have you with us again. And also, from a place to stand and a place to grow, in her studio in Toronto, Ontario, retired financier and aviation enthusiast, spreadsheet master, and our producer, it's Liz Piper.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here.
Great to have you with us. And the rest of our crew will be joining us later on in the show.
See you
And-
later, guys.
Okay. And here we go to the news.
stand by for news.
All right. 1C we start with, and let me turn your volume down a little bit, Liz. There we go. Nothing personal. Don't take it personally. Say something?
Something.
Okay. Not you guys. And I'm sorry, yeah, I realize now that I was broadcasting my channel to the entire stream when I asked if you could still hear me, Liz. But anyway, that won't be in the final product for sure. All right. This item is an incident from the Aviation Herald. PIA, Pakistan International Airlines Boeing 777-200 registration Alpha Papa Bravo Golf Juliet performing Flight 211 from Islamabad, Pakistan to Dubai, United Arab Emirates, was en route at flight level 360 about 170 nautical miles northeast of Dubai, United Arab Emirates, in Iranian airspace when ATC cleared the aircraft to descend to flight level 200. PIA Pakistan International Airlines Airbus A320. Why am I reading this again?
Do let us know if you work it out.
Oh, it's another. Okay, I got it. It's the other airplane involved here. Another Pakistan International Airlines, an Airbus A320-200, registration Alpha Papa Bravo Lima Whiskey, performing Flight 286 from Doha, Qatar, to Peshawar, Pakistan, was en route at flight level 350, about 160 miles northeast of Dubai. Okay, so we have two PIA jets, one at flight level 350, one at flight level 360. PIA reported both aircraft received TCAS resolution advisories. PK-211 to climb. ADSB data show the aircraft climbed to flight level 363 due to the TCAS resolution advisory, RA. So about 300 feet above its, above its cleared to altitude, flight level 360. And flight 286 to descend. ADSB data show the aircraft temporarily descended to flight level 346. So they descended about 400 feet. After air traffic control had cleared, Flight 211 flying at flight level 360 to descend to flight level 200 directly into the flight trajectory of Flight 286. PIA is talking to Iranian authorities to investigate the occurrence. On August 14, 2022, Iran's CAO released their final report concluding the probable causes of the serious incident were based on radar service within control area, CTA. The controller's instructions and clearances for both traffics were correct, and the cause of TCAS RA serious incident was the pilot's misunderstanding, leading to mistakenly Flight 211 commenced descent without receiving any clearance from Tehran ACC controller. According to the received evidence such as radar data, flight plan, and voice communication, the Flight 211 flight plan was against Traffic Orientation Scheme, TOS, which was issued and inserted into in Iran AIP. I'm not sure what that stands for. Looks like some kind of a flight clearance, flight path clearance. Therefore,
AIP. I can't remember exactly what it is, and an something publication.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking.
Okay. Therefore, the controller instructed Flight 211 to proceed directly to Patat to modify flight route to some extent. Later, when the longitudinal separation between the two aircraft declined by 10 nautical miles, while there was 1,000 feet of vertical separation, Flight 211 commenced descent to flight level 200 without receiving any prior descent clearance. Aeronautical information publication, according to our control room. Thank you, Liz. Okay. Simultaneously, the opposite traffic on reciprocal track, Flight 286 received TCAS RA descent command and descended down to flight level 346. The pilot of 286 declared TCAS RA to Tehran ACC, and when he was cleared of intruder traffic, returned to flight level 350. On the other hand, during passing flight level 357, Flight 211 received a TCAS RA climb command and returned to flight level 360 as soon as possible. The pilot of Flight 211 did not report TCAS RA to Tehran ACC. When two aircraft were cleared from each other, the Flight 211 descended to flight level 200 and was handed over to United Arab Emirates radar for further descent. Okay, so honestly, I'm all confused. Maybe Captain Nick, you can help us understand what happened here.
Yeah, having flown in this area a lot, there are some handoffs that occur, and the ones sometimes between United Arab Emirates airspace, which is to the south, and Iran's airspace, which is to the north. They're not sometimes brilliant, but normally it works pretty seamlessly. So we've got one of the aircraft heading south at flight level 360, and the other heading north at flight level 350. So the northerly one's just a little bit lower. And the one that's coming south, which is that's right, 211. They've been given, well, supposedly, according to the information from Simon, they were given a descent to flight level 200, which meant that they were going to descend through the altitude of the northern bound aircraft. And apparently they commenced that descent. And because the two aircraft were very close to each other and their altitudes were merging, their TCAS system, which was quite honestly a God save in this situation, alerted both aircraft to take avoiding action, and they did. And they stayed apart, which is fantastic. But reading on, it appears that the Iranian controller says he didn't give him clearance. That's what the conclusion is. And I'd love to know what information Simon has that allowed him to say that ATC cleared the aircraft to descend to flight level 200, because in the CAAO's report, they're denying that. They're saying that there was a misunderstanding and they had not given descent clearance. So it's a difficult one. Without actually hearing the RT, we're going to find it hard to understand. The fantastic thing about this is TCAS works. It saves lives every time you get an RA. There is a distinct possibility that had that system not been on board, the crews, the aircraft would have got close enough to have caused an appallingly tragic accident. But also, I'm just going to make a comment here. Whenever I see an aircraft symbol on TCAS, I'm always watching it if it's going to come close to me. And if it's only 1,000 feet away, I'm going to pay attention to it, because that information is generally displayed all the time on our TCAS displays, which are nowadays usually on our main navigation displays. So they're right there in front of us, easy to see. And if you've just been given a descent clearance and you see an aircraft that's only 1,000 feet below, 10 or 15 miles ahead, converging with you, the first thing I'm going to do is question my descent clearance from air traffic, and certainly I'll point it out to the pilot flying. I say, hold your descent a minute. Yeah. Can you see that guy? And I'll also try and acquire that aircraft visually so that I can be absolutely certain that when we've gone past him, where there's no other traffic around to descend, because you can see an aircraft on TCAS sometimes, and you look out and you visually acquire an aircraft, you assume it's the same machine. It may not be. It may be one that's a few miles away or a few thousand feet in difference in altitude, and you visually picked up the wrong airplane. So a few lessons here to be learned, albeit they're the same lessons we've learned many times in the past when people misinterpret it. But luckily, the TCAS piped up, and you get these oral warnings that you've got traffic approaching, just that big word, traffic, and we're supposed to reduce the range on our displays to ensure we can see the target and then try and visually acquire. And then if you are going to converge with him and break the minima that TCAS has programmed into it, then you're going to get instructions on to climb or descend or one of those options, perhaps maintain your altitude so that you safely pass clear of them. So thank the Lord for that. Because we're talking about Pakistan. Now, I'm not going to try and make too much of this, but an aircraft from Pakistan and flying over Iran. Neither of those countries have a fantastic safety record when it comes to aviation. So I think we have to bear that in mind when we analyze this. If this were over the United States or over Europe, it may not have happened. But sometimes the standards in certain parts of the world aren't quite as high as places where there's a lot of investment into aviation safety.
Well, the bottom line, that's why I was confused, because it seemed that Simon's narrative differed from the official final report narrative. And I'm thinking they must have received clearance to descend. Otherwise, why else would they have received a TCAS RA, right? I mean,
Yeah,
the 1,000-foot separation should not have triggered the RA.
That's true. The only thing I can think of is perhaps they had a constraint further on down their route of flight level 200, and perhaps they were just doing a descent as we might do into, say, somewhere like Los Angeles, when you're cleared to descend via an approach, which means you can automatically commence a descent and adjust your altitude without a specific clearance.
Right.
That might have been in the crew's head, or the controller might have said, expect flight level 200 at a certain waypoint.
And then they just went ahead and started the descent.
And they kind of assumed that was an actual clearance when it was just notification that that's your profile. So a couple of things there that might have gone on. I can't think of anything else, but stunning scenery around that part of the world. Absolutely fabulous. And,
that must have been why. They were like so...
Yeah, they were probably just gazing out at those amazing mountains.
I think I'm going to get a little bit closer. Take a closer look. I'm going to go ahead and start descent.
Yeah,
Into
but
the
having
path
said
of
that,
the
it can be a little bit busy going into United Arab Emirates, because there are a lot of FIR crossing points. A lot of people climbing out on the same route, and while you're trying to descend in. So you've got to keep your wits about you.
Okay. Just a quick tech pause. Liz, are you all sorted out with the... Okay, good. I can turn the volume up a little bit more now. I guess I was hearing everything over and over and over again. Oh, interesting. Yeah, Nick Camacho probably had to take a call or something. So, anyway. All right, thank you. All right. Let's move on to which item, Liz? E. Okay. A TUI Airways Boeing 737-800 registration Golf Foxtrot Delta Zulu Foxtrot performing flight 1665 from Palma, Mallorca in Spain to Aberdeen, South Carolina. There is an Aberdeen, South Carolina. I've looked it up. I need to get a little screenshot of it. It's not an official town, but I found a place that said Aberdeen, and it was outside of Kakalaki, South Kakalaki. Anyway, Aberdeen, Scotland, UK, with 67 passengers and 6 crew, was on approach to Aberdeen's runway 34 in instrument meteorological conditions, IMC. When descending through 5,000 feet, the air traffic controller advised the crew they might need to abort their approach. A search and rescue helicopter about to depart would receive priority once airborne. In this case, they would be required to climb to 3,000 feet at runway heading. The aircraft, okay, so they're given warning. That's very likely that they're going to have to execute or discontinue their approach. The aircraft established on the ILS approach to runway 34 was descending through 2,600 feet on single autopilot. Okay, just a reminder, this is a 737. Flaps at 15 degrees and gear down. ATC instructed the crew to abort the approach. Climb to 3,000 feet. Okay, they're at 2,600 feet, so only a couple hundred feet here. Turn left heading 270. The crew pressed toga and initiated the climb and the left turn. Just before reaching 3,000 feet MSL, the aircraft began to descend again, reaching up to 3,100 feet per minute sync rate. Tower controller noticed the aircraft descending again and notified approach control, who contacted the crew just as the crew was pulling the nose up and returning the aircraft into a climb at 286 knots indicated airspeed. The speed selected by the crew was 200 knots. The aircraft leveled off at 3,000 feet. The crew re-engaged the autopilot. The aircraft positioned for another approach to Aberdeen and landed safely on runway 34. The AAIB released their special bulletin stating that the Boeing 737-800 is a dual autopilot Cat 3 capable aircraft. Normal procedures, as outlined by the manufacturer, require the use of a single autopilot on an ILS approach unless the intention is to conduct a Cat 2 or Cat 3 approach and landing. Automatic go-arounds are only available from a dual autopilot approach. The autopilot flight director go-around mode is engaged by pressing the takeoff go-around switches. Pressing either of the switches when the engagement criteria are met will disconnect the single autopilot if it's connected and place the flight directors in go-around mode. Okay, so the autopilot's off, you're manually flying the airplane, but you do have guidance on the flight directors. It will command a 15-degree nose-up pitch until the aircraft reaches a programmed rate of climb. Flight director pitch commands then target airspeed for each flap setting based on a maximum takeoff weight calculation. The Air Accidents Investigation Branch annotated that the pilots of Golf Foxtrot Delta Zulu Foxtrot, like many other pilots, had not flown for significant periods during the 18 months before this incident. Although the investigation has not established a link between this incident and a lack of recent line flying, it's clearly a possibility. The investigation is ongoing. Okay. Now, just recently, August 18th, the AAIB released their final bulletin, concluding the probable cause of the serious incident was the crew were instructed to go around by ATC. After initially climbing towards the missed approach altitude, the aircraft began descent. The descent continued for 57 seconds, reaching a minimum of 1,565 feet above ground level before the aircraft was recovered to a climb. A combination of an unexpected large increase in thrust when the go-around was initiated, instructions from ATC to fly a heading, a lack of manual pitch trimming, and the changes in the flap configuration caused the crew to become overloaded, allowing the aircraft to descend unnoticed for a significant period. I think it was close to a minute, 57 seconds actually.
That's a long time.
That's a long time. I'll save my my commentary. Both pilots had experienced significant periods away from flying the aircraft type during the pandemic. The aircraft descended from close to 3,000 feet above mean sea level for 57 seconds before a climb was reestablished. And this represented a significant deviation from the crew's expected flight path. Yeah, duh. The rate of descent peaked at 3,100 feet per minute before the aircraft began to climb, having descended to 1,565 feet. Okay, this is just stuff that we've already talked about. During the descent and subsequent recovery, there was an uncommanded and undesirable increase in airspeed to 286 knots that was not corrected in a timely manner. Having pressed the toga switches once for the go-around, the crew expected the engaged autothrottle to select power for a climb rate of between 1,000 to 2,000 feet per minute. However, the aircraft was above 2,000 feet radio altitude, and as a result, unexpected by the crew, the power advanced towards the full go-around N1, so pretty high power. With the underslung engines and at an approach speed for the flap selected, slow, this large increase in power meant that the aircraft pitched up significantly and climbed towards the selected altitude of 3,000 feet very rapidly. The autothrottle remained engaged, and as the aircraft approached the level off, it reduced thrust towards that required to maintain the selected speed in level flight. The reduction in thrust caused the aircraft pitch attitude to reduce. This was exacerbated by trim changes due to the retraction of the flaps from 15 to 5. The aircraft then began a descent, and since it had not reached the criteria for altitude hold, the AFDS, the Auto Flight Director System, remained in altitude ACQ, which I'm assuming is a choir. The retraction of the flaps from 5 to 1 and then from flap 1 to flap up during the descent also further decreased the pitch attitude. As the aircraft was descending, the speed increased, despite the selected speed remaining at 200 knots. The crew were assigned several heading changes both before and during the aircraft descent. These instructions placed an additional burden on a crew that was already working hard. Wait a minute. We're supposed to be able to turn the airplane and descend and hold altitude at the same time? What?
Yeah. And in America, every go around is going to have a heading and an altitude to hold, because your pre-programmed go around track is inevitably going to be overridden by air traffic.
Right.
So
yeah, I agree. Anyway, the heading instructions had to be acknowledged and actioned by the co-pilot, which could have distracted him from his monitoring tasks. The commander, who was manually flying, had to maneuver the aircraft in roll during a very dynamic period in pitch control. Although the crew seemed unaware of the descent for a significant period, there remained further barriers to a continued descent that might have alerted them to the situation. These were the aircraft's terrain avoidance and warning system and air traffic control radar system alerts. In this instance, the ATC radar system alert that was supposed to warn of an aircraft with a rapid rate of descent failed to recognize their descent rate exceeded 2,500 feet per minute for a total of approximately 9 seconds. This barrier, therefore, did not function as expected. Okay, another factor. However, the crew became aware of the descent and began to correct it at the same time as the tower controller noticed their descent on the radar repeater in the tower. Both the crew and ATC therefore acted to correct the flight path as soon as it was noticed. The investigation looked at the possibility that the crew were affected by cinematographic illusion as the aircraft accelerated, but although this could not be completely dismissed, an analysis of the FDM data showed it was unlikely. Any nose-down force on the controls during the initial part of the go-around was most likely due to the aircraft being out of trim, with a large increase in thrust causing a pitch up that the commander countered by pushing forward on the control column. There were no abnormal nose-down forces on the controls during the subsequent acceleration during the descent. Then they talk a little bit about the pandemic leading to a situation which was true for most airlines all around the world, where flying was drastically reduced and pilots got rusty. Thank you, Liz. Perfect way to describe it. 2-engine go-arounds in day-to-day flight operations are rare. With a go-around rate around 3 per 1,000 flights in the UK, the average crew from the operator might have expected to experience one a year when flying at the pre-pandemic rate. Regular practice in the simulator is usually conducted from the approach minimums for regulatory compliance, either single-engine or with an autopilot coupled go-around available. Go-arounds from higher altitudes on the approach are less regularly practiced. Yes, and they're tricky. It's unlikely that either crew member had conducted a go-around in the aircraft in the previous 2 years. While the go-around should have presented little problem to the experienced crew, the combination of less than average flying in the recent period and very little flying in the case of the co-pilot, the unexpected large increase in thrust and the changes in heading given by ATC probably combined to overload the crew. Subsequently, they were unable to retain their situational awareness. Changes in thrust generated corresponding changes in the pitch of the aircraft, which together with the pitch changes generated as the crew changed the flap configuration, were not dealt with through manually trimming the aircraft. It was a lot of words, Liz. The pitch of the aircraft was not managed effectively by the commander, and the aircraft began to descend. Now I can take a breath. Okay. Nick Anderson, I'm sure that you're chomping at the bit here. Might have something to say about. I certainly do, but I'm going to let you start, and I'm going to take a sip of coffee.
First of all, I'm going to have a certain amount of sympathy with the crew, because when I've been away from flying for a while, and you've just done simulators to try and keep currency up. When you get into the real aircraft, things actually in this kind of scenario are quite different from the simulator. For a start, the simulator cannot simulate the acceleration forces you feel when you do a real go-around, because all the simulator does to simulate a go-around is to tilt the box backwards a bit, so you kind of fall back in your seat, which makes you feel like you're accelerating, but it's a fraction of the force that you get in a real airplane. So you're not going to get a cinematographic illusion in the simulator, or you're extremely unlikely to, unless there's something wrong with your inner ears.
I hope you don't get that
Exactly.
kind of experience.
And what's more, the simulator instructors are usually, they're not like real air traffic controllers where they're going to just completely ignore what you're doing and try and make life really difficult for you and give you lots of instructions all at the same time. I'm not suggesting that Aberdeen did this, but there is an awful lot going on in a short space of time, particularly when you've only got 400 feet between you and your level off. You've suddenly gone to full power, which was a little bit unexpected. They assumed the aircraft would take less power and would only climb relatively gently. This is Rick's talked about this numerous times. The Boeing go-around system of pressing the toga buttons once for a gentle climb and twice, I think, for a full power climb, or the other way around. I can't quite remember. But anyway, they thought they'd gone for the gentle climb because that's all they needed. But the airplane went to full power because of the altitude. Apparently that difference in the type of go-around, you have to be below 2,000 feet on the radio altimeter, and they weren't. That was a gotcha. They fell into a trap there, and they got a lot more acceleration than they expected. Now, the reason the aircraft pitched up, of course, is that the engines are slung under the wings in pods, so there's a low thrust line which is below the line of the center of gravity, so that force will pitch the airplane up when you put power on, and when you take power on, it'll pitch the airplane down. My feeling, and I've got nothing to base this on other than what the captain didn't do, was that he was convinced the autopilot was still in, I think. And when he advanced the power and the airplane pitched up towards the level off altitude, he thought, oh, that's great, that's the autopilot, and doing that for me. And in the meantime, he got absorbed with cleaning the airplane up, etc., pulling some power back because they were accelerating a lot. And the airplane, when you pull power, began to pitch down along with the trim changes that go along with bringing the flaps up. So the airplane started to pitch down. Now, the reason he didn't manually trim, I think, is because he thought the autopilot was in. And he was probably distracted from everything that was going on, allowed the height to descend because he thought he wasn't monitoring his instruments as if he was hand flying. Now, that's just my opinion, so it may not be true. If I'd spoken to the guy and chatted to him, I may have come to a completely different opinion. But I think he pitched up, thought the airplane was doing the right thing with the autopilot, and kind of relaxed a bit and started trying to deal with all the other things that were happening very quickly. The airplane wasn't. It was just going ballistic. But then it started to make the top of its parabola and coming back downhill again. He wasn't really paying much attention to it. He was probably trying to work out why the speed was so fast instead of looking at the altitude and realizing that he hadn't even reached 3,000 feet. He was on his way down to 1,500. So, and that was quite a dramatic error. So he allowed himself to get distracted. Why does your brain not work very well or his brain perhaps in this situation? And I think his time off flying has had a lot to do with that. There's no doubt about it that after a period away from flying, whether you're on leave for 2 weeks or whatever, the first time you get back in the airplane, it can be a thing. Simple things can happen quite quickly, and you sometimes not prepared because it takes you just a little while to get back in the groove. And on a busy go around, that's definitely something you have to be aware of. So even though they had warning and they should have been prepared for the actions, perhaps they even would have had time for a mini brief. Okay, this is going to be a non-standard go around. What I'm going to do is manually select this, do this, have a think about what you're going to do, perhaps a quick brief to your first officer too, so that you're both on the same page and both anticipating what's about to happen. I think he, like we talked last week about the guy who had got so far behind the airplane he was hanging under the fin. I think this is one of those cases. Mm-hmm. And I feel sorry for the crew, but as Jeff's almost certainly going to say, we're professionals. This is our job. We're supposed to be able to do this in our sleep.
Yes.
So, yeah, I have sympathy, but perhaps not as much as I ought.
You have way more than I have. Nick Camacho, what say you?
Well, so I just had a couple questions because I'm not familiar with this setup, right? First of all, they're talking about maintaining currency in the simulator, right? And so in an instance like that, are they just maintaining like the baseline level of currency that's required, or are they trying to maintain proficiency with the pilots? And I guess the way that I delineate that is you guys may need to take a simulator ride every 6 months or have one landing a month. I don't quite remember. I know you've talked about it, but your minimum currency requirements, or if they know these guys aren't going to fly for 12 months, will they try to have them in the simulator every couple of weeks to kind of mimic what their standard schedule would look like?
Well, definitely not that. They can't afford to have them in that.
That's what I figured.
That often. But the recency as far as takeoff and landing currency is 3 takeoffs, 3 landings in a 90-day period. I think it's the FAA. I'm assuming that's probably a KO as well. The proficiency, though, it depends on the airline and what kind of, at least here in the U.S., what kind of an arrangement they have made with the FAA regarding, whether you're going to be in recurrent training every 6 months or every year, or in the case of Acme, every 9 months. And it alternates between proficiency, recurrent training, which I just went through, and then the next one will be the line-oriented flight training, the loft kind of scenario where you get into emergencies and working with the crew and that more real-time simulation, and not so much on maneuvers validation. But there is, depending on the airline, there is a certain time frame where proficiency is required to be demonstrated by the pilots, but it's not every few weeks. Well, I don't know if you're going to say anything else, Camacho, before I start on my rant.
Yeah, I was just the couple of things that I was curious about are, Nick mentioned that the guy's not looking at his instruments, and I guess I would just be curious what he would be doing. It's a 2-crew non-emergency situation. Does he have any additional duties, or is the pilot not flying going to be, or the pilot monitoring going to be managing everything that's not associated with aircraft control? Like, is there any reason he wouldn't be looking at his instruments?
No.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. That's his one job. Although, having said that, he's also the captain, and it depends on his first officer how much he knows about him and trusts him. He may well be monitoring his hands while he's doing flat protections and things, just to make sure if it's an inexperienced first officer, he doesn't grab the wrong lever or something. So he may be diverting his attention, probably appropriately, but he's spending too much time looking away from the instruments. That's fine if everything's under control, and he may have thought everything was under the control, because I still believe he thought the aircraft was flying itself, not him. So there are plenty of things that he could be looking down to make sure he's dialed the right frequency in the radio or whatever, and it doesn't take much to consume 57 seconds. Although to me it seems like if we had 57 seconds of dead air now on this show,
it'd be quite obvious.
By the end of it we'd all be going mad.
I agree.
We tested that a couple of times ago. Nick, you wouldn't be aware of it because you're the one that caused it, but the rest of us tested that, and you're right. We got on pretty quick.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
I was the last one to notice because I didn't even have the StreamYard window up, so I didn't know. And then all of a sudden I hear Nick or Steph going, "Are we still on the air?" What? What do you mean? Anyway, so interesting, Captain Nick, your comment about the feeling that you have that perhaps he thought that the airplane was still in automatic mode for the go-around. And you're probably right, because why in the final report would they start off? And their special bulletin, I should say. They start the very first sentence is explaining the dual autopilot capability of this airplane. And when you have, a single autopilot engaged and you're flying an instrument landing system, Cat 1, the go-arounds are manual. So there must be a reason why they're stating that right off the bat. So you're probably right. Maybe he did not realize that. And I don't know how much experience this captain had. Now, not recent experience, like total experience. But, you'd think that they would kind of know that if this is going to be a go-around, it's going to be manual, especially when you click the toga button. Now, as you mentioned, the smart thing would have been, and they may have done this, I don't know, we don't have the transcript of the cockpit voice recorder, or perhaps they don't even have the voice recording, from this particular flight. But when air traffic control gave them that heads up, that should have been, boom, red flag. They're warning me that something not normal might happen here. And so I think they gave them plenty of warning to say, oh, okay, let's plan on, stopping the approach at some point. Let's talk about how we're going to do that. And if you're only 400 feet below the the missed approach altitude, I would say, why don't we just not, let's don't make this the kind of go around that we practice in the simulator where you hit the toga button and you go screaming up and the engines come cogging in and it wants to throw the pitch up and then do all these configuration changes. Let's just leave what we have, because we're going to get vectored back around for another approach. Leave the flaps where they are, the speed where it is, and just gently, nice rate of climb to 3,000 feet, level off, and fly it manually, and then everything is under control, and nobody even in the back probably would even have realized what was happening. It was like, oh yeah, we're turning again. I guess we're going to, go around for another attempt. And that would be plenty of time for them to get on the PA and said, hey, we have, due to a certain situation here, we have to go around for another try at landing, blah, 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 whatever. But to just automatically be geared to, no matter what, hit the toga button, and then have all these things happen, and then like quickly try to reconfigure the airplane and turn and do all these things all at the same time. I'm thinking, why? Why did they do that? That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm thinking, just go click, 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 power up a little bit, and then climb. Yep, click, 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 click. Just like Children of the Magenta. Just climb a little bit, level off, rehook up everything. Now you're back in autopilot mode, and all is right with the world. Yes, Liz. That would be the way I would do it. I don't understand. If you're down close to the ground, that the reason why the engines go full power. And of course, in this case, he didn't maybe realize or remember that above a certain altitude, that whole 1,000 to 2,000 feet per minute first mode of the go around is not in effect anymore. It's going to go, oh, you're way above the ground, so I'm going to give you full power. I don't know if I really understand that logic, actually. I think it would go the other way, really. If you're way above the ground, why put in full power? Just give you the nice, gentle go-around thrust, right? I don't know. I've never flown an airplane that has a dual mode power for go-arounds. So I really can't say. But yeah, I think you're right, Nick. The captain probably has just assumed that the airplane was still flying. The autopilot was still flying. Yeah. And then he just got way behind, and it just, was just like a death spiral almost. It could have been a death spiral had it not been for them, realizing that they were heading toward the ground. Now, I don't know, I may have misread it, but it seems to me that they were saying that the ground proximity warning system didn't activate either.
No, I think there's an aircraft terrain avoidance and warning system should have activated and it didn't, and the ATC radar also has a safety system built in that didn't activate.
Oh, maybe the enhanced ground proximity warning system didn't work because maybe it was still in enough of a configuration and it was close enough to the airport that it thought, oh, okay, well, it's going to be landing, So I'm not going to give any kind of warnings about terrain.
Or they were still relatively high at 1,500
Yeah.
feet for that to go off. But the ATC radar system is supposed to alert as well in that situation. And it didn't, apparently. But,
Wow.
they were sort of ways to have saved the situation. As it turned out, the air traffic controller and the crew both realized what was going on before they needed any automatics to save them. So, they twigged it eventually. But,
And I have to say, we hear about this isolated event, but it happens probably more than it should to all of the airlines, including maybe Acme Airlines, which is a made-up airline. But I know for sure that Acme have had some of these types of scenarios where things kind of got all out of whack for something that should have been just so easy, just to make it nice, easy, pitch up a little bit, put the power in, make it a nice, easy thing. And instead, everything just went out of control because they tried to execute a go-around procedure as if they were just about to hit the ground, and they couldn't see anything. There's a time and a place for using these kind of procedures. And yeah.
Now, if this had been an Airbus, it would have been probably no better, because the Airbus systems are really quite complicated in go-arounds. And the simple go-around is the one that happens at minimums, a couple of 100 feet above the runway when you can't see the land. That's the easy one. But it's those intermediate level ones, whether you're above or below the acceleration altitude or above or below the go-around altitude, that are the complex ones, and they're the ones that require just a little bit of thought. And funnily enough, they're the ones that actually give you the time to have that little think, because you're not about to hit the ground. You've got plenty of airspace between you and terra firma. So there is time just to take that momentary pause, assess the situation, remind yourself just quickly mentally what you're going to do. If you have time, sure, do a mini brief, but at least your actions will be calm and measured and appropriate for the situation the airplane's in.
Take the pause that refreshes.
You're very good.
I don't know. I don't know what that commercial was. Do you remember, Camacho? Remember there was something, the pause that refreshes?
No.
Oh, Coke? Coca-Cola? Oh, okay. Liz thinks it might be Coke. Anyway, Liz, what do you
Kit
think?
Kat.
I don't know. No, I don't think Kit Kat.
Take a break. Have a Kit Kat.
Cat break. Yeah, that's a different one.
Give me a break.
Give me a break, yeah. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. All right. You can send the money to...
Are we getting sponsorship?
Yeah, maybe. So I don't know if you had planned for us to do another news item, Liz. Okay, good, because I think that it might be a good time then for us to head over to the feedback that we're going to do before we do the plain tale. And we could do getting to know us too. Yeah, forgot about that. Yeah. Well, you know what? Okay, what's the feedback you'd like us to do? Okay, let me do this.
Captain, incoming message.
Going to feedback number 6 from this strange guy named Captain Nigel. Bang seats. It's not what you're thinking. You've probably read gaseous articles on this subject. This is the most informative one I've read so far, and this is from the aviationist.com, and it is entitled Hundreds of Military Aircraft Grounded After Potential Defects Found in Martin Baker Ejection Seats. Now, this is a little while back. I think they have fixed all this since this article and this issue was discovered. The company found that some production lots of the actuated devices used in the ejection seats might be defective and therefore needs to be replaced. Hundreds of military aircraft around the world have been grounded after ejection seat manufacturer Martin Baker discovered a potential defect in some production lots of the cartridge actuated device, CAD, the explosive cartridges used to propel the seat out of an aircraft during an emergency. The ejection seats are now undergoing inspections to verify the absence of defects before allowing the aircraft to return to fly. CAD's initiate a series of automatic functions when aircrew pull the ejection handle to safely egress the aircraft and deploy the aircraft's parachute. The CAD is inspected regularly and replaced if needed during periodic maintenance of the aircraft that can be affected by environmental and operational conditions. The first to ground their aircraft were the British, which were grounded on July 22nd, 22. A temporary precautionary measure, their Hawk T-1 trainers assigned to the Red Arrows, and the Typhoon fighter jets involved in non-essential flying activities. The Red Arrows were cleared to resume flying on the same day, while the Typhoons returned to fly this week. Also on July 22nd, Germany temporarily suspended flight operations with their Eurofighters because of the same problem, while unconfirmed sources mention a possible grounding of the Tornadoes, too. I believe that Captain Nick Anderson is the one that suggested that they permanently ground the Tornadoes.
Yes, for sure.
On July 26, it was the turn of the United States. We're always behind everybody, I guess, as NavAir disclosed that the potential defect of the CADs was also affecting the FA-18B, C, D Hornet, the FA-18E, F Super Hornet, the EA-18G Growler, T-45 Goshawk. Is that the way you pronounce that? Goshawk?
Goshawk, yes.
And the F-5 Tiger II. Wow, they're still flying the F-5. Wow. The press release specified that only aircraft equipped with CADs with a limited range of lot numbers are affected. The CAD are already being replaced at the aircraft's assigned squadron, and the aircraft will be inspected before its next flight. Let's see. The release also mentioned that after being notified of the potential defect by Martin Baker, the team at Naval Surface Warfare Center Indian Head Division, which provides CADs, propellant-actuated devices, so CADs and PADs, for Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps aircraft, used validated radiography procedures to scan on-hand inventory to verify each item was properly manufactured before sending to the fleet to replace the existing CADs. Okay, and then finally, I guess the U.S. Air Force grounded T-38 Talons and 76 Texan IIs, potentially affected by the CAD issue, out of an abundance of caution. We will not return any aircraft affected by this issue to the flying schedule until we're confident their escape systems are fully functional, said Air Education and Training Command. Never heard of that. 19th Air Force Commander Major General Craig Wills. Our instructor pilots accomplish an incredibly important and demanding mission every day. Yeah, and we owe them safe and reliable aircraft. Yeah, you do, and much more. Yeah. So, a bunch of aircraft affected. The article goes on and talks about some other airplanes that were also affected by the CADs. And I don't know what else to say about this. Nick, Captain Nick, do you have any?
Yeah, well, I've got a little bit of background to this problem, and I can't really divulge where I got that from. It's a bit unfair, but and I can't confirm it other than they do in the last few sentences mention something that reinforces my opinion. Now, during the pandemic, Martin Baker apparently changed their shift structure. So because of illnesses and because of, just they didn't need to have the same shift structure with the change in workforce they had. So what they used to do was to pack these CADs. I think one shift would do it completely from start to finish. And what they decided to do was that it would be allowable for one shift to start the packing of these CADs and another shift to finish. Now, I'm not certain if that is true or not, but that's what I heard. Now, let me just explain again what CADs are, because right at the beginning of this, I think there's a little error in the article where it says the CADs are the explosive cartridges used to propel the seat out of the aircraft during an emergency. The CADs actually are actuators. They're small cartridges which, when they're ignited, fire gas through tubes around the ejector seat to set something off. It might be to set off the manual separation. It might, from the seat, it might be to set off the automatic separation that cuts your seat straps, allows you to fall out of the seat wearing your parachute. These are actuators that perform functions on the seat. The main gun, I don't think is a cartridge actuated device. So the main gun is the big long tube that actually fires you clear of the,
like the rocket
aircraft. Yeah, before the rockets ignite and carry on
okay.
thrusting you.
So this is another thing that kind of pops you out.
It does. It pops. It's about
and then the
6 feet
fires.
long. It's a telescopic tube, pushes you out, and then when you're clear of the aircraft, a little wire has now come taut that's attached to the cockpit floor and your seat, and that pulls the sear out that ignites the rocket, and then that carries on accelerating you away. The idea is that in order to get the separation and the 0-0 capability, you couldn't put a huge gun in there because the G acceleration would have caused you a lot of damage to your spine. So they wanted progressive acceleration. So they had a small gun and then a rocket pack that would whoosh you the rest of the distance away. So these CADs are littered around the seat, and they activate on time, on altitude, on G, and various other things to do the sequence that requires. I mean, command eject happens through one of these small explosive devices. So when one seat goes, the CAD will fire, and that will initiate ejection of the other seat, that sort of thing. So that's what these devices are. And right at the bottom it said the CAD's defective part was loose and missing the magnesium powder used to ignite the propellant. So it sounds like in the packing, as I mentioned, of these devices, a step was missed. Now, if you're going to get two different shifts doing the assembly of these items, they've got to take over at exactly the point that the last shift finished them. And I suspect that there was perhaps the administrative recording of what the previous shift had done wasn't perhaps as accurate as it could be. The handover between the shifts didn't work very well, and a number of these small explosive devices were packed and sent off, not having been put together correctly. Now, I have a huge amount of respect for Martin Baker. They have an enormously high record. In recent years, they have dropped the ball a couple of times. And I hope this doesn't continue, because they have, a history that goes back to World War II that it deserves maintaining. And I would like to see them tighten up their ship a little bit, because this is a couple of times we've had some problems that have, been directly attributable to Martin Baker's, the way they operate.
You would think that they'd have some kind of a thing where they pull like one every 10 or one every 30, just, from the assembly line and take it out.
Almost certain they
them.
do, Jeff. When they have cute quality, I suspect they have a very rigid quality control, but it only, it takes one or two of these devices to get through in a big batch. And you won't discover that necessarily. But then when they're all shipped out and you realize there's a problem, you've no idea which ones are misassembled. So you've got to recall the entire batch. And that has obviously affected an awful lot of aircraft.
Yeah.
An awful lot of seats.
Wow. All right. Very good. Well, thank you, Nigel, for sending us that article, making us aware of that.
Now, Nigel's, of course, very attuned to this because he's banged out of a Hawk.
Yeah, he has experience getting banged out.
Exactly. And his seat worked as advertised and saved his life. So that's fantastic.
Yes. Yes. All right. I think we should go to getting to know us. What do you think, Liz?
Sure.
That time of the show where we kind of get caught up on what has been happening with the crew between shows. And we'll try to make it quick, but I think that Captain Nick, you should start us off with the Getting to Know Us segment.
Oh, most certainly. I mean, I just remind you that my lovely friend Rowie, the Australian 380 pilot who came and visited last weekend, got safely back to his home base. Quite a long trip that was, because that's I think it's a 10-day pattern they have to come all the way out to the UK and then go all the way home again. So he's safely back, which is great. But it was lovely seeing him. But more recently, I helped out another podcast. Am I allowed to mention their name?
No, please don't mention their name. No,
Oh, okay.
yeah, please do. Yeah, we'll be mentioning them probably a couple more times.
I won't mention PT UK. Them
Okay,
Plain
yeah.
Talking UK. It's just that every now and again I do an interview for them because they have got someone interesting, usually with a Royal Air Force background, and that sort of is ideal for me to chat to. And the lovely
you're
chap
you're a master interviewer, so I completely
hardly
understand
think so.
why. Yeah. You are. No, you really are.
Well, it's very kind of you. But I don't know if Chris Burwell, who I interviewed, would say the same. No, actually, we had a lovely time. Chris Burwell has just written a book called 9 Lives. And his claim to fame, of course, is that he was a Cold War Harrier pilot and flew from the early marks right to the most fantastic, GR7 that the Harrier had, was modified into a completely different airplane almost. Fantastic. So an enormous amount of experience. He commanded number 1 squadron, one of the most famous squadrons in the Royal Air Force, which the history of which stretches back to the 1870s when they flew balloons, which also, like a Harrier, went straight up and down. So, very clever. So I chatted to Chris to talk to him about his book. He went on to command RAF Scampton. That was the World War II bomber base that the dam busters took off from when they attacked the Ruhr dams. And then he left and joined an aviation company called Cobham, who provide target facilities for Royal Air Force and Navy, and the Army come to that, and they do a lot of electronic countermeasure training for those services, as well as doing things like they calibrate ILSs on airfields and all that kind of stuff. So he was involved in the management of all that. So very interesting career. It was lovely to chat to him. A very pleasant chap. We had a very nice, several hours talking aviation. And if you're at all interested, I'm afraid you will have to go and listen to PT UK when that comes out. There'll be several ones. I also note that we've got a picture, or he used a picture of his Martin Baker tie, because he jumped out of a Harrier which had an engine failure. And he also got, which is something you won't get nowadays if you eject out of modern Martin Bakers, a Caterpillar Club golden caterpillar. It's supposed to represent the silkworm that made the silk that Irving parachutes used to make their parachutes, because in older times the Martin Baker seats used Irving parachutes, and so if you ejected you could apply to Irving and they would send you their beautiful little golden caterpillar with ruby eyes. Real
nice.
rubies. They're not very big, mind you, but it's a very sweet little brooch, a little gift. And nowadays, I think mainly aeroconicals are used, and they don't give away little gifts. Mean old aeroconical. Anyway, so that was my day yesterday, and it was lovely seeing Neville again, because we don't meet nearly often enough, but we are going to meet again tomorrow, because tomorrow is the occasion of the funeral of our lovely friend Ivor, who passed away very recently. And if anyone is up near Oswestry, there's a crematorium not far from that town where we will all be assembling, the details of which are all on Ivor's Facebook page, which his lovely wife has kept going, and she has put the details of the funeral there, the address of the crematorium, etc. So if you are interested, get onto Facebook, type in Ivor, and I'm sure you'll find him.
Ivor McDonald, correct?
Yes, I think
Yeah.
yes, absolutely
Yes,
right.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. MC, yeah, we had this, not Mac Donald, but MC Donald, McDonald.
Yeah, muck.
McDonald.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Well, I hope that I'm so happy that you and Nev are going to represent our respective aviation podcasts because Ivor is going to be sorely missed by.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we'll miss his feedback, and
Yeah.
knowing that he's keeping an eye on us, making sure we keep on the straight and level. And his wife has given me permission to take my camera along and use
good.
it. So hopefully next week I'll have some pictures of the service.
Very nice. All right. Well, be safe on your journey, and
Thank you, sir.
look
So
forward
it's
to
only
hearing about it.
5-hour drive. So.
Well, for you, if it's more than 15 minutes, I'm worried.
Bit worried, yeah, exactly. I usually run out of fuel after 15 minutes.
Yeah, because you have the accelerator all the way to the floor.
Yeah, exactly.
He drives fast, but I do too. All right, Nick Camacho, how have you been, sir?
Pretty good. Got to do a little bit of flying in the Luscombe last weekend. I had a friend who has a similar airplane, a Luscombe with a slightly bigger engine, but we were talking about props, and he's thinking about making some changes to his propeller to what I have on my airplane. So I went out and did some flying and collected some performance numbers for him to kind of give him an idea of what my airplane does. And so that was a little different. I don't do a lot of precision flying in that airplane.
Yeah.
So that was fun, but that was about the extent of my aviationing this week. Other than that, got the kids back in school and continuing to work on stuff around here. My folks' house is fully under construction now, so that's good to make progress there. And I went ahead and got my West Coast trip for September finalized. So I will be going out to California. I'll be in San Luis Obispo for a couple of days, and then going up to Reno for 4 or 5 days, and then back to San Luis for a week. So that should be good.
Cool.
We were chatting about Reno a little bit last week. I guess I was just going to explain it, I guess, for 30 seconds because I guess it may not be as well known outside the United States, but it's we have Reno as the Reno Air Races, or the National Championship Air Races. That's an event we have here in the States that is basically pylon racing. So it's the equivalent of like closed circuit or oval car racing for airplanes. They have a big course set up out there in Reno, Nevada, and they race everything from Formula One class, which is a 100 horsepower or a 200 cubic inch displacement engine, kind of anything goes, small little airplane. They've got a biplane class, they've got a T6 class, they've got a sport class, which is RVs, Lancers, like common experimental airplanes. Then they've got a jet class where they run L-29s, L-39s, Marchetti S-211s, airplanes like that. So not quite supersonic jets. And they've got the unlimited class. The unlimited class is kind of the top tier. That's mostly World War II warbirds, large displacement, piston engines.
Are we supposed to be showing some of those slides that you?
Well, you can start putting them up. I mentioned that our chief pilot, Sherman Smoot, flies a Yak 11. So I put this picture in there. That is a stock Yak 11. It's basically Russia's equivalent to our T6. And then if you go to the next one, this is what Sherman's Yak 11 looks like. So that's a...
oh, wow, that's brilliant.
That's an R2800. It's
quite a bit different looking than that first one.
Yeah. They had to put a bigger tail on the airplane. They were running a big prop. I don't remember if they were running I can't remember if it was a Skyraider prop, but they were running, the propeller that they were running was so big that they actually collared the shock absorbers. So he was not allowed to have any shock absorption, and he couldn't wheel in the airplane. He had to 3-point the airplane because the prop.
I was just going to say that the tip of that prop with the tail wheel down is very close to the runway. When he does what a normal tail wheeler does, stand the tail up, he's surely going to hit the prop on the ground.
Yep. So they, so it was always exciting to watch him take off and land. I mean, it was quite a piloting feat with some of the crosswinds they had there in Reno. So yeah, definitely a challenging airplane to fly. But yeah, they've removed the large 2-place cockpit. They've put a tiny little cockpit with a turtle deck, moved the pilot way back because of obviously the CG of putting the giant engine up front. And then I think there's one more picture there of it in flight, but you can see it's
wow. I love
really,
the shape of that wing.
Yeah, it's really an impressive airplane. And there's a handful of these highly modified warbirds that fly at the front of the pack, and then it also goes all the way back to like bone stock warbirds. So that'll be fun. It's definitely an event that is worth going to once or twice just to hear the sounds.
Yeah, I'll bet.
So yeah, right. I think that's all I've got.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I can save my what's been happening with me for. Well, you know what? No, let's do it now. Yeah. Okay, get my slides up. Get my slides on. So let's see. I flew a trip last week and then picked up a quick overnight somewhere. I don't remember now where that was. No, I did that quick trip up to Newark and back, and then I flew my regular trip, which was another. I'm getting all my trips confused. Anyway, I've been flying a lot, so much so that I just don't know where the heck I am anymore. But I just returned from a quick overnight at the end of my regular trip this week because I had to pick up a little bit of extra time before the end of the month, and just went overnight to Memphis. And actually deadheaded yesterday afternoon and then flew back this morning. But between the two trips, on I believe it was Tuesday night, I ended up getting together with Armando. He texted me and said, "Hey, are you in town?" I said, "Yeah, I just got back from a trip." And he said, "You want to meet up for dinner somewhere, like a brewery or something like that?" And I went, "Yeah, I do." And he said that he was with Shelby, his first officer, and they were laying over here in the Atlanta area. And we went to Sweetwater Brewing Company. Many of you, especially here in the U.S., are probably familiar with Sweetwater Brewing. They're 420 ale and IPA and lots of other beers. And I'd never been to their actual brewery tap room. And so I thought this would be a good time to do that. So there's a picture that we're showing of us in the tap room enjoying some beers. And then behind us you can see, I guess, I don't know if that's probably their laboratory fermentation room where they kind of try out different recipes and that kind of thing. I don't think that's their main
no, the amount they produce, I don't think they're going to do it in there.
No, that's not. Those aren't huge tanks behind there. But anyway, good stuff, good food, and great beer. And it was very nice to meet Shelby. Shelby is the young lady that is staying with the Carry-Ons in North Carolina, and she is the one that's going to be instructing Megan, Armando's wife, in that brand new, well, not brand new to them, Super Cub. So that's kind of neat. And there's another shot of the evidence that we had consumed a couple of beers. And,
yeah, nice one.
The residue from such beers, yes. So anyway, it was very nice to meet up with Armando and Shelby. And as I said, the next day, went out and did the overnight. And now here I am back. And for the rest of the month, probably not going to be doing any more flying until the beginning of September, like the 4th of September, I think is my next trip, because there are some things happening here in the house that I'm in. So we'll see how that goes. Fingers crossed it will go well. And that's it.
Good luck.
All right. Do you want to talk about the cover art, Nick, from our last show?
Well, yes, it certainly won't take me long.
Okay.
It was a bit quick and dirty, really, because I had just only a few hours to do it before I headed off on interviews and the like. But we had a suggested show title, Hanging On, and this was my interpretation of a poor pilot, mentally hanging on because he is now behind the airplane, which is something we often say when you find that the airplane is doing things you weren't expecting and you're not keeping up with it. And it's a common problem, particularly when you're starting your aviation career, finding yourself behind the airplane. So you're usually back there hanging onto the tail, hoping for the best.
Yeah, sometimes miles behind the airplane, it seems.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I'll do the coffee fund on part 2, Liz. So I think now would be a good time to do the old pilot's plain tale,
Sure.
which in this case is the battle above the Somme. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
The old pilot's plain tales above the Battle of the Somme. The First World War Battle of the Somme continues to this day to fascinate and appall in equal measures. Much has been written about the ground war, the first day of which saw the greatest number of British casualties that had occurred before in the entire history of the British Army. 19,240 were dead and 38,230 injured. The fighting over a 16-mile front lasted almost 5 months, after which the Allied troops had advanced about 6 miles. The butcher's bill of casualties was horrendous. The combined Commonwealth countries' number reached nearly 60,000, but was dwarfed by the United Kingdom's casualty number of over 350,000 men. When totalled with those Frenchmen who fell, the Allied number reached 632,907, a number almost equalled by the German losses. As one German officer wrote,
Somme, die ganze Geschichte der Welt. Somme, the whole history of the world cannot contain a more ghastly word.
The battle opened on the 1st of July 1916 with a massed explosion that ranks amongst the largest non-nuclear explosions in history and was then considered the loudest human-made sound to date, audible beyond London, 160 miles, 261 kilometres away. British tunnelling units from the Royal Engineers had secretly completed mine shafts, some over 1,000 feet, 300 metres long, that ran under no man's land to finish beneath the German trenches, where they eventually laid 19 piles of high explosives ranging from a couple of £100, 91 kilograms, to 60,000 pounds, 27 metric tons. The largest, the Lochnagar mine, sprung from a tunnel that had been dug to a depth of 95 feet, 29 metres, to avoid the many German counter-mining tunnels that were used to attack them. When the vast pile of ammonal explosive was detonated, it left a crater 300 feet, 90 metres across, and 90 feet, some 30 metres deep. An 18-year-old Royal Flying Corps pilot who witnessed the vast explosion wrote, "We were over Thiepval and turned south to watch the mines. As we sailed down, above all, came the final moment, 0. At Boissel, the earth heaved and flashed. A tremendous and magnificent column rose up into the sky. There was an ear-splitting roar, drowning all the guns. flinging the machine sideways in the repercussing air. The earthly column rose higher and higher to almost 4,000 feet. There it hung, or seemed to hang, for a moment in the air like a silhouette of some giant cypress tree, then fell away in a widening cone of dust and debris. A moment later came the second mine. Again the roar, the upflung machine, the strange gaunt silhouette invading the sky. Then the dust cleared, and we saw the two white eyes of the craters. The barrage had lifted to the second-line trenches. The infantry were over the top. The attack had begun. Next day we were up at 3 a.m. and took to the air at 4, dawn over the trenches, everything misty and still above. With the prospect of heat to come, even the war seemed to pause, taking a deep, cool morning breath before plunging into action. We were out to find the exact position at Boissel, for even now, on the 4th day of the offensive, the Corps intelligence did not seem clear on the point. We sailed over the mines and called for flares with our klaxon. After a minute, one solitary flare spurted up, crimson, from the lip of the crater. It looked forlorn, that solitary little beacon, in the immense pitted miles of earth around. We came down to 500 feet and sailed over it, trying to distinguish the crouching khaki figures huddled in their improvised trenches in the khaki-coloured earth. It was not easy. We crossed the crater, going north, wheeled south again to come back over it, when suddenly there was a crash and the whole machine shook, as if the next moment it would wrench itself into pieces. I thought I'd been hit by a passing shell. In a flash I pulled back the throttle and switched off. The vibration lessened, but we still shook fearfully. Now, where to land? 500 feet over the front line, the earth an expanse of continuous shell holes. We should certainly crash, perhaps catch fire, right on the line. Such thoughts raced through my head as I looked frantically for some spot less battered than the rest. There was a place, right underneath me. I dived at it, and the speed of the machine rose to 100 miles an hour. Of course, we could never hope to stay in that one green patch. We should overshoot, crash into the trenches beyond. But at 500 feet, there's no time to change your mind. You select your spot for better or worse and stick to it. So we dived. "What's the matter?" shouted Pip from behind me. "Cylinder blown off, I think," I shouted. "Undo your belt," I yelled. I didn't want him to be pinioned under the machine when it caught fire, if it did catch fire. By now we were down to 100 feet, and the contours of the earth below took on a detailed shape. I saw, God be praised, that the green patch that had caught my eye was the side of a steep hill. There was no wind. I swung the machine sideways and pulled her round to head up the slope. She zoomed grandly up the hillside. The speed lessened. Now we were just over the ground, swooping uphill like a seagull on a steep Devon plough. Back and back I pulled the stick. The hill rose up before me, and at last she stalled, perched like a bird on the only patch of the hill free of shell craters, hopped 3 yards, and stopped, intact. With a gasp of amazement and relief, for no one could have hoped to have got down in such a place undamaged, we jumped out of the machine. It was Pip's 21st birthday. Suddenly I remembered it. "Many happy returns," I said. The days of the Royal Flying Corps' dominance with the Sopwith Camel and the SE-5A were still a long way off, and the outdated pusher-driven aircraft of the time, the DH-2 and two-seat FE-2B, were at a distinct disadvantage. The Germans had already developed an interrupter gear that allowed forward-firing guns to shoot safely through the propeller arc. In the Fokker Eindecker, pilots such as Immelmann were able to develop their tactics until they became known as the Fokker Scourge. In response, Trenchard at the head of the Royal Flying Corps stated, "Until the Royal Flying Corps is in possession of a machine as good as, or better than, the German Fokker, it seems that a change in policy and tactics has become necessary. It is hoped very shortly to obtain a machine that will be able to successfully engage the Fokkers at present in use by the Germans. In the meantime, it must be laid down as a hard and fast rule that a machine proceeding on reconnaissance must be escorted by at least 3 other fighting machines." In response, the RFC introduced formations that allowed aircraft to give supporting fire that deterred many German pilots, one of whom stated,
Die Technik und Taktik der Engländer war verblüffend. The techniques and tactics of the English were amazing, the main principle being that each machine could not look after itself but its partner. Each one therefore protected the other against any attack by German opponents, and each pair tried to attack the same foeman. The Englishmen refused to be rushed, and their steadiness gave them an absolute superiority.
There were, of course, those who felt that the German pilots had the advantage, as a young pilot on 32 Squadron remarked, "I know, I feel very uncomfortable with 2 HA well above me, and in spite of the fact that I climbed to about 13,500 feet, they were still above, which is very demoralizing. We shall have to bring out some very fine machines next year if we're to keep up with them. Their scouts are very much better than ours now, on average. The good old days of July and August, when 2 or 3 DH2s used to push half a dozen Huns onto the chimney tops of Bapaume, are no more. In the Roland they possessed their finest 2-seater machine in the world, and now they have introduced a few of their single-seater ideas, and very good they are too. One specimen especially deserves mention. They are manned by jolly good pilots, probably the best, and the juggling they can do when they are scrapping is quite remarkable. They can fly round and round a DH2 and make one look quite silly." The Bristol fighter didn't fare much better. "We could see no signs of the formation, so we made for the lines and picked up 3 of our escort about 2 miles this side of the lines. Of the other escort we never saw anything, and after waiting about 10 minutes we decided to go over with the other 3 machines, and as we knew we were faster than they, we were going to circle round after every half minute or so to allow them to catch up. We went in over Pierre St. Vastwood, and we started taking our photographs with 2 of our machines sitting on our tail and the 3rd a little under us. It was then I noticed how strong the wind was, which was blowing approximately from the southwest, and which kept blowing us further over. After taking our 3rd photograph, I saw that we had drawn far away from our escorting machines, and so I signalled to Lucas to turn round, and we turned into the wind. It was then, as we were halfway round, that one enemy machine came out of the clouds for our tail. We had to turn to meet him, but as we were firing at him, 2 more machines dropped out of the clouds onto our tail, firing steadily. The first blew half our service tank away, so Lucas swung around and put her nose down for our lines. I fired away over the top plane, but they did a very good job shooting, and our machine was simply riddled with bullets. Suddenly the machine started side-slipping violently, and at the same time the engine gave a jar and stopped dead. Looking down, I saw that Lucas was bending down in his seat, and thinking that he was working with his switches, I put out my hand to shake him. But then I discovered that he was hit through the back of the head and was unconscious. At this time we must have been at about 6,000 feet, and so I set to work to try and get his left foot off the rudder bar as she was still side-slipping. This I eventually managed to do, but at this time we were only about 3,000 feet, and I saw the 3 German machines were still on our tail, firing away. I saw that with a headwind and no engine, we could not hope to reach the line, as we were then over Haplincourt. So to avoid the machine guns, we were also being fired at from the ground, I put her down very steeply. Unfortunately, Lucas had slipped off his seat, and when I tried to land, I found that I could not flatten out. The undercarriage was swept off, and she crashed on the wing. I was thrown clear, and Lucas was brought in a few minutes later, but never recovered consciousness and died about 4 p.m. The Germans buried Lucas that night, with due ceremony, in a little cemetery just half a mile outside Haplincourt. A pilot from 22 Squadron described his last mission. I left the aerodrome, carrying 2 20-pound Hales bombs. When I reached a height of 8,000 feet, I crossed the German lines in the sector between Albert and the Somme. I remember releasing one of the bombs, but I don't remember the target. From that moment on, I remember nothing until I regained consciousness in a German field hospital on July the 7th. I was wounded by a machine gun bullet entering my back between the spine and the shoulder blade, and it travelled in a downward direction, lodging in my diaphragm. I was unconscious for 6 days from concussion caused by my machine crashing. His wound was very painful, and to his amazement and apprehension he discovered that he was to have an operation without general anaesthetic. No ether cup was to waft him into insensibility, no chloroform on a handkerchief to dull his brain to the surgeon's knife. In due course he was dumped onto an operating table, and a hypodermic needle jabbed repeatedly into the region of his wound. Local numbness resulted, and the German surgeons started in to mend 4 broken ribs in the gaping hole in his side. A combat report from 60 Squadron described another fight. We were at about 8,000 feet, and just before reaching Cambrai, we were at about 9,000 feet, when I suddenly saw a large formation of machines about our height coming from the sun towards us. There must have been at least 12. They were 2-seaters, led by 1 Fokker monoplane, and followed by 2 others. I'm sure they were not contemplating war at all, but Ferdy pointed us towards them and led us straight in. My next impressions were rather mixed. I seemed to be surrounded by Huns in 2-seaters. I remember diving on one, pulling out of the dive, and then swerving as another came for me. I can recollect also looking down and seeing a moraine about 800 feet below me, going down in a slow spiral, with a Fokker hovering above it, following every turn. I dived on the Fokker, who swallowed the bait and came after me, but unsuccessfully, as I had taken care to pull out of my dive while still above him. The moraine I watched gliding down under control, doing perfect turns to about 2,000 feet, when I lost sight of it. I thought he must have been hit in the air. After an indecisive combat with the Fokker, I turned home, the 2-seaters having disappeared. I landed at Vert Galant and reported that Ferdy had gone down under control. We all thought he was a prisoner, but heard soon afterwards that he had landed safely but died of wounds that night, having been hit during the scrap. In the churned earth below the aircraft, much of the hoped success of the Somme depended on the accurate use of long-range artillery. In this, the RFC was a vital asset to spot the fall of shells, and when the RFC had been unable to fly, artillery commanders anxious to prepare the battlefield had compensated by the expedience of firing twice as many shells in the general direction of the target. This was done in the hope that the greater weight of fire would increase the chance of hitting the target. It had been nothing more than optimism and a waste of ammunition. The Somme was the first large-scale battle in which it could be said that Britain began the full application of its air power capabilities. The Somme offensive was perhaps the starting point at which the generals began to understand the vast improvement that proper integration could achieve. It does not seem unreasonable to suggest that it was the first proper proving ground upon which the formidably effective air-land cooperation seen in the final battles of the war would be built.
That was really Somme's story, wasn't it? Ba-doom, bam. You're still muted, Nick.
Sorry, you didn't hear my mirth then at your dad joke comment.
No, I think you were laughing really, really hard. That Jeff is really clever.
Yeah, I know. You never cease to impress us, Jeff.
Well, yeah, not positively, unfortunately. Yeah, wow. What an interesting story, and those explosions just sounded horrendous.
Yeah, I know. I mean, there's a fantastic movie about, I think it's the second Battle of the Somme, where they show the times taken by an Australian group of miners engineers who dug to lay even larger explosions. It was a tactic that had been in use in almost the Middle Ages, when they used to mine underneath the walls of castles. But, of course, using modern explosives and things, they could make a hell of an explosion. And the idea was that it destroyed the front trenches and allowed those guys going over the top to run forward through the wire and get to the craters where they were going to then take cover, and from there they could attack the second line of trenches. And to a certain extent it worked, but it was never as successful as it was hoped. But the German miners used to dig countermines, and then they would lay charges in those, trying to collapse the mines that were being dug by the Allies. It was just an underground warfare, and it's hard enough being underground in that claustrophobic place without, having the knowledge that any noise you make might attract Germans or the enemy to attack your digging, and I just think it was incredible. And then to find an airborne account of what it was like to see these things go off, I thought that was fantastic, and that just led me into looking for more combat reports from the Somme. It's I think of it now as being relatively advanced, but you forget this was only 13 years after the Wright brothers had first got airborne in 1903. Wow. And this was taking place, in fact, less than 13 years, taking part in the summer of 1916. So, what advances they had made in that short time. And by the end of the First World War, they had radios on board. The aircraft were pretty powerful in comparison. They had relatively large bombers. It just shows what can be accomplished when you put the entire country's industry into creating machines of war.
Yeah.
Incredible.
It is incredible. Yeah, you're right. That rapid pace of technological development in aviation is pretty astounding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, you think even now, you try and build a modern airliner, you're probably looking at a larger lead time of that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad we had a chance to listen to your plane tale. It's always a pleasure, a treat when we hear one, and it was another well-crafted and well-told story, and look forward to the next one. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and end this part of episode 534. And soon you'll be hearing the voices of a couple of other crew members.
Oh, yes. But before I go, I must thank Baron von Volta, whose voice we heard. Of course, Marcus Volta from Omega Tower podcast, who very kindly recorded both German and English versions of those spoken words. So thanks very much indeed, Marcus.
Sounded like a fake accent to me, but...
yeah. Well, actually, he did say, do you want me to use my normal accent or pretend I'm having a dreadful German accent?
The dreadful German accent.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. The dreadful German accent, please. That was brilliant.
And those English accents were really good, too, Captain Nick. You're
no, somebody else did those.
Oh, okay, sure. Gotcha.
Anyway, all right. Well, have a great second half of the show.
All right.
See you next time, Jeff.
Yeah, Omega Tau Science and Engineering Podcast, Marcus Volter. Thank you for helping us out. And all right, you be safe, Captain Nick, on your journey with Nev tomorrow. And we'll see you all again soon.
Excellent. Thanks very much.
Hey, I apologize early when I did this. I was trying to make a mark in the audio file.
Is that what that was?
That's the
you
sound
did make
heard.
a mark in the audio file.
Yeah, apparently it was. I thought it would be one that only I could hear.
I jumped a mile.
Then Liz said, "What was that?" I guess everybody can hear that. I'll have to figure out another way to do that. Anyway, so hey, everybody in the chat room. Did we already come up with some kind of a show title suggestion?
The only one that I had, what was it here? Just one, stand by. I did have
Standing by.
I did write it down.
It's not much of a show title. Stand by.
Stand by.
Oh,
Stand
this
by.
was this was from Neil Lanwarn, and it was. I thought it was good, but I don't know how you'll illustrate it. CADs and bounders.
Oh, okay. CADs and bounders. Well, I'm sure I can do something. Whether I can get aviation into that, I'm not sure.
Yeah. What's a bounder?
Yeah, I don't get that. I don't want to
A
show
bounder
my
is an English term
ignorance
for
here.
someone who is not a very pleasant
It was a
person.
CAD.
Usually,
It's a CAD.
you know, same as
It's
a
a
CAD.
CAD.
Yes. someone
Okay,
who's-
okay.
Well, that makes sense now that we have context. We didn't. That's not an American
No.
thing.
No, not.
The only bounder that I know is one made by Winnebago. It's a Class A motorized front engine RV called the Bounder or a Bounder.
That's the only one I came up. Or what was it?
Okay.
Oh, here's one again. I don't know how you would illustrate it, but we had two instances, both the air traffic controllers with the two Pakistan ones and then the Martin Baker, defective handovers.
Oh, okay. Right.
Again, no idea how you would illustrate
Yeah.
it.
If something comes up in the second half, do let me know.
Definitely. We'll look at it.
A bounder is a dishonorable man.
Yes.
Ah.
I know why you guys would not know that, of course.
Because we only know
Well, honorable
upstanding.
man, of course.
Honorable.
I understand it.
Yeah.
Huh,
What horrible
that
did you
shoots
say?
down my my artistic idea then.
Well, go ahead. No, go.
Well, I was just gonna say we could put Captain Nick on an ejection seat, and then you'd have a CAD and a bounder.
Yeah.
Boom, boom. Bye,
Well,
Nick.
sadly, I don't think I have a picture of me in an ejector seat. I'm sure I do, actually.
Well, there's Photoshop.
No. Couldn't do that. Although, actually, I've got a picture of me sitting in the cockpit, so I might make that work.
CADs and bounders.
What a CAD.
Thank you, Neil.
There's we should have a picture of you sitting in the cockpit of a Phantom or an F-18, and yeah, what a CAD.
Yeah.
So yes, everybody, we're going to plan to do the next part at 1800 Eastern, and I'll post links on Facebook and Twitter shortly.
Excellent, and I'll update the website. By the way, is Micah still with us today?
I don't know, he was, but
He was.
I'm just wondering if he's still having that same issue with. Obviously, he found us somehow.
Well, I think they figured out a workaround last time, so he may have had to use the workaround to get in.
Okay.
It might have had something to do with the program he was using. The
podcaster? No.
no, Chrome or
Yeah, the
whatever.
browser. Yeah,
browser.
gotcha.
Was it?
Well, I use. Yeah, could be.
Okay, everybody, we'll see.
But it
Yeah.
might be the settings.
Some
Yeah,
of you
brilliant.
later,
All right,
hopefully.
super. Yeah,
See everybody.
have good fun later on.
Yeah,
Going to end
All
the
right.
broadcast now.
and the broadcast.
Bye.
Oh, can I
Bye.
press that button?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I
Thank
already
you.